And as you continue down this path, it becomes painfully clear that the danger is not in the loud conflicts, the obvious betrayals, or the dramatic fights, because those are easy to spot and respond to. The true destruction comes from the quiet manipulation, the calculated charm, the subtle erosion of your confidence and independence, the way a woman can turn your own emotions against you without you ever realizing it, starting with small things. A word here, a suggestion there, a question that seems innocent but plants doubt, a compliment that masks control, a withdrawal that tests your loyalty, a demand that disguises itself as need, all of it forming a web so intricate and invisible that you are caught before you even know there was a trap. And this is exactly what Machiavelli warned about centuries ago when he studied the nature of power, influence, and human behavior. Because he understood that the most dangerous adversaries are not those who fight openly, but those who use your trust, your desire, your weakness, and your ambition to bend you to their will. And in modern times, some women have mastered this art so thoroughly that men who encounter them are rarely aware of the damage until it's nearly irreversible, and the tactics they use are consistent. First, they identify your vulnerabilities, whether it is your need for appreciation, your fear of loneliness, your ego wounds, your ambitions, or your emotional dependencies, and then they mirror your desires, creating an illusion of compatibility, intimacy, and understanding, making you feel like you found someone who gets you better than anyone else, while all the while they are quietly calculating how to use that connection to influence your decisions, control your behavior, and ultimately extract power, attention, or resources from you. And the process is insidious because it begins with charm, flattery, and the appearance of unconditional support, and gradually moves into subtle control, emotional manipulation, and strategic withdrawal, where love becomes conditional, affection becomes a tool, and approval is earned through obedience, compliance, and a surrender of your own preferences, choices, and even dreams. And if you fail to comply, they withdraw attention, affection, or intimacy, creating anxiety, self-doubt, and the irresistible pull of seeking their approval again. And over time, you begin to live not for yourself, not for your goals, not for your purpose, but for the validation of someone who thrives on control, chaos, and leverage. And Machiavelli himself would recognize this pattern instantly, because he wrote repeatedly that power is most effective when it is invisible, subtle, and operates under the guise of something else. And the tragedy is that most men are trained to trust, to love, and to believe in the authenticity of care and connection. And so they fall into the trap without realizing it, giving up their freedom piece by piece, surrendering autonomy, and gradually losing the sense of who they are, what they want, and what they are capable of. And these women are masters of timing, knowing exactly when to compliment, when to question, when to withdraw, when to demand, and when to create chaos. And they feed on this power because, as Machiavelli observed, some people are motivated not by affection, loyalty, or justice, but by influence, control, and advantage, and they use what he called the soft weapons of manipulation, persuasion, and deception, wielded so expertly that the victim often mistakes these moves for love, concern, or genuine care. And this leads to the most dangerous kind of damage because it is invisible, slow, and cumulative, attacking your confidence, ambition, relationships, finances, and even mental and physical health. And yet, it is preventable if only one recognizes the signs early, establishes unbreakable boundaries, and refuses to allow charm, beauty, or perceived vulnerability to override reason, awareness, and self-respect. Because Machiavelli would insist that early recognition, decisive action, and avoidance of prolonged engagement with manipulative forces are essential to preserving your power and your life. And yet most men fail to act, caught between desire, fear, hope, and the addictive pull of approval. And this is the brilliance of the trap, because the manipulator does not need to attack directly. She only needs to hold the thread of withdrawal, the promise of affection, and the subtle pressures of expectation. And suddenly, a man who was once confident, decisive, and ambitious is hesitant, anxious, and compliant, constantly evaluating how to meet the unspoken demands, constantly negotiating peace. constantly sacrificing his own goals for temporary stability. And gradually, unknowingly, his life begins to revolve entirely around the will of another, and at this point, Machiavelli's warning becomes real. The enemy is not the one who confronts openly, but the one who enters your life, identifies your weaknesses, and orchestrates your compliance while pretending to love you. And every delay in recognizing this danger, every excuse made for behavior that diminishes you, every attempt to rationalize manipulation as love, strengthens the influence of the manipulator and accelerates your loss of autonomy, independence, and vision until the ultimate realization comes too late. That what you thought was love was in fact a system designed to extract power, attention, resources, and obedience from you. And the devastation is not only emotional but practical. Confidence destroyed, ambition curtailed, relationships strained or ruined, financial losses incurred, and a sense of purpose replaced by obsession, dependency, and fear. And Machiavelli would say, this is a natural outcome of failing to respect the lessons of power, of allowing charm to override strategy, and of mistaking affection for alignment. And so, the lesson is clear, brutal, and necessary. The moment you sense manipulation, control, or erosion of your independence, you must act decisively, detach, and preserve your boundaries, because love that destroys is not love. It is control disguised as care, and only awareness, courage, and purpose can protect you from the subtle and devastating influence of those who would dismantle your life while wearing the mask of affection. Centuries ago, Niccolò Machiavelli, a man who studied the raw truths of human behavior and power, warned that the most dangerous forces in life are not those that attack openly, but those that manipulate subtly, who understand how to exploit weakness, desire, and ambition to bend the will of man without him ever realizing it. And today, that warning is more relevant than ever because some women, under the guise of love, affection, or care, can quietly dismantle a man's life piece by piece, starting by studying his weaknesses, listening carefully not to connect but to gather ammunition, observing every emotional scar, every fear of inadequacy, every need for validation, and then patiently, invisibly, crafting ways to use that knowledge to their advantage, presenting themselves initially as mirrors of your desires, pretending to be the perfect partner, echoing your dreams, validating your ego, making you feel understood and appreciated like no one else ever has, whispering promises of love and loyalty, yet beneath the surface, calculating how to gain leverage over you. Because Machiavelli himself taught that the most dangerous people are those who understand the vulnerabilities of others and exploit them strategically. And so, unknowingly, you begin to give her control over your emotions, your decisions, your boundaries, and even your self-respect, thinking this is intimacy, thinking this is love, when in reality it is a slow process of entrapment that begins with charm and ends with domination, as she rewards compliance and punishes independence, withholding affection, attention, or approval when you fail to submit to her subtle commands, creating an addictive cycle of emotional highs and lows that binds you psychologically to her will. And the more you give, the more she expects, until you begin walking on eggshells, fearing rejection, fearing her anger, fearing her withdrawal, believing that you are weak or flawed, while she thrives on control she has over your mind, slowly eroding your confidence, planting seeds of doubt in your abilities, questioning your choices, undermining your ambitions, diminishing your sense of purpose, and reshaping your identity without any dramatic confrontation. Because Machiavelli understood that true power is often invisible, and that the most dangerous manipulators are those who create their empire in silence, who never attack openly but always weaken you from within. And this type of woman, who appears nurturing and supportive, is in fact a predator disguised as a partner, feeding on your energy, your focus, your drive, and your peace, always testing the boundaries of your patience, always assessing how much control she can exert, thriving in chaos, creating problems where none exist, making ordinary days feel like emotional battlegrounds, turning small disagreements into conflicts that leave you drained and distracted, keeping you in a constant state of tension, uncertainty, and self-doubt, while she appears to be the victim, the innocent, or the caring one, all the while watching carefully to ensure that your weaknesses remain exposed. Your attention remains on her rather than your goals, and your ambition is steadily diverted into maintaining her comfort and approval. And when your power, status, or success grows, she positions herself closer, not out of genuine interest in your achievements, but to leverage your rise for her own gain, to attach herself to your trajectory so that when hardship hits, she can distance herself, leaving you alone to face the consequences. Because as Machiavelli warned, some people respect only power, some desire only benefit, and manipulative individuals are always calculating where they can gain the most, whether it's emotional influence, financial advantage, or social leverage. And in a modern context, these women often disguise their intentions with charm, intellect, beauty, or vulnerability, creating a perfect trap for the unaware. And the tragedy is that most men, taught to see women as partners, lovers, or companions, fail to recognize these warning signs early, dismissing subtle manipulation as quirks, misunderstandings, or differences in communication, never realizing that every small concession they make, every compromise they allow, every moment they prioritize their desires over their purpose, chips away at their independence, their confidence, and their destiny, until the cumulative effect is catastrophic, leaving them emotionally dependent, mentally exhausted, financially drained, socially isolated, and spiritually lost, yet still trapped by the illusion of love, the addiction to approval, and the fear of being alone, which is precisely the mechanism Machiavelli described centuries ago when he wrote that the most dangerous adversaries are not the ones who fight openly, but those who know how to enter your life quietly, exploit your needs, and dismantle your defenses while making you believe you are gaining something. And so, understanding this truth is not an invitation to hatred or cynicism, but a call to awareness, a call to recognize manipulation disguised as love, to see charm used as control, to detect dependency created as leverage, and to protect your purpose, ambition, and integrity before they are slowly eroded by those who thrive on emotional dominance. Because a man without purpose, without clarity, without firm boundaries, becomes the easiest prey for those who seek to rule through subtlety. And Machiavelli would tell you, repeatedly, that early recognition and decisive action are the only ways to preserve your life, your freedom, and your power, and therefore, the moment you feel disrespected, controlled, diminished, or drained, you must act decisively, set boundaries, and walk away, not with anger, not with drama, not with explanations, but with the calm certainty of a man who understands that power respects decisiveness and integrity, because love that destroys is not love at all. It is manipulation masquerading as affection, and only by seeing the truth, acknowledging it, and protecting yourself can you avoid a lifetime of regret, broken dreams, and stolen peace. Because Machiavelli knew that those who fail to recognize danger early are always the ones who lose everything. And today, as much as in the past, some women, consciously or unconsciously, possess the knowledge of emotional leverage, control, and subtle dominance. And if you fall into their orbit without understanding the rules of power, the consequences are unavoidable, insidious, and long-lasting. And so, the lesson is simple yet harsh. Awareness, boundaries, and purpose are your shields against destruction disguised as love. Because charm without respect, affection without integrity, and attention without care are weapons, not blessings. And recognizing them early is the difference between a life of fulfillment and a life slowly dismantled under the guise of romance.